Now, the two biggest ANC provinces in terms of membership held their elective conferences this weekend, and in both provinces, the delegates of the ruling party moved closer to the centre and warded off the divisions from the 54th ANC National Conference. Now, we are joined by CNBC Africa's political economy reporter, Karabo Letlatla, who was there and gained some great insight from that conference. You were in Gauteng, I assume.
Some of us have to be punished, and yes, I was punished with the Gauteng ANC provincial conference.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what's more important, I think we had a brief discussion about this last week. President Cyril Ramaphosa had to make an appearance at either one or both. And I want you to explain how important it is for the electorate for him to have been at both.
Well, President Cyril Ramaphosa was really supported by Gauteng as a province towards the conference of the African National Congress last year in December. That's the big province that spearheaded him, if you will, and won all the others that supported him for his ANC presidency. Now, KZN remains a force in terms of ANC membership. It has the most members of any ANC province, and it's been a political hotbed, if you will. And some of the politics that have been there, politics of Zuma, politics of the past, and breaking away with it and moving into the future. So all those things had to be addressed. And I think both conferences, for me, addressed that. I think delegates of both provinces, Gauteng and KZN, decided to move away from politics of the past, i.e. politics that divided the movement leading up to Nazareth last year, and they are really concentrating on getting as much support as they can as they head towards 2019. But is it a marriage that's working? I think it has to work from a convenience point of view. But what we saw at the KZN, at the Gauteng ANC elective conference rather, was, you know, there was a bit of a surprise and not much of a surprise. Going into the conference, there was no other name listed with that of chairperson, acting chairperson at the time, David Makura, and he, you know, gently took a walk to become chairperson, confirmed. He stood unchallenged. But I think the real crux of the matter was we were going there to see who wants to be deputy to Makura.
Why is that deputy spot so important? Because you know, that was something that was spoken about significantly.
Yeah, because the Premier himself, or rather in this case, the acting chairperson, David Makura, had almost let his desire known that he would have loved to have Pakstau in that position, and that was the mood going into it. But Pakstau was up against Lesufi, Panyaza Lesufi, who's the Education MEC, and Lebogang Maile, who is also the MEC of Economic Development. And I think for me, you know, being there on that Saturday morning, if you will, at 2 a.m. At Irene, you know, just for me, the big moment. I thought this was the moment that really separated everything and that made this a political game. We have a little bit of that moment. I don't know if we can play it for the viewers.
I politely and respectfully so accept the nomination. I decline nomination.
And for me, I think that was the big thing, because Pakstau declining nomination for deputy, you wonder where the political, you know, flow was going. And then it turns out that the two biggest losers of the day would happen to be the Ekurhuleni Mayor, Mzwandile Masina, and Lebogang Maile, who both lost out on the deputy and the treasurer of the province, respectively. Now, this was a big thing because the margins of victory were very, very small, if you will. Lesufi only won by 22 votes, and Pakstau won over by 20 votes. I mean, that was very, very marginal, considering the margins that were at the national conference as well. Cyril Ramaphosa only won by 173 votes. That says to me that ANC politics, as much as they may be trying to foster unity, but going ahead, it's very, very difficult. I mean, even the close of conference, Makura had to stand there and literally tell delegates that lobby time is over now, that from now on we have to focus on the elections. But will they? I don't know. ANC is a very, very difficult and I think a very cumbersome movement for its delegates too. And I think this weekend proved that for me.
Karabo, I love your choice of words here, and you're going with movement, not a political party per se. And if we look across the border, Frelimo, Kano, all these parties that actually declared, well, won independence from the colonial masters have sizzled out. How do you morph ANC away from a liberation movement and a revolution movement to a political party that is relevant to the young man like yourself?
And that's a very important question, and I feel like a part of that for me was answered this weekend by the Reverend Makura. I mean, Makura stood there and he said, I would rather not be chairperson. I would rather educate young political leaders about political school, about how to govern, and about how to create an ANC we want to see. So for me, there is a little bit of a movement, if you will. The progressive forces are trying to go towards, accomplished ANC, comrades. They're moving towards people with valid degrees, people who can competently do the work that they are appointed to, and not this willy-nilly cadre deployment where you kind of put people in a position that's over their competency levels. So he's worried about the outcomes of this political movement as it tries to be a better governing party. But the African National Congress still has a problem. We saw a delegate lose his life in KZN following the conference there. We saw even here that it was almost loud in its absence that Lebogang Maile was nowhere to be found on Sunday, and neither was Mzwandile Masina. For me, there are things to get over before we get to a good place, and if they're going to get there, that remains to be seen.